That's great. All right. 870-275-9799. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Joining us now for his impression of the session. As promised, we've got State Representative Dan Sullivan from District 53 is with us. Dan, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Paul. And folks really don't know how good you are. I texted Paul at 3:50 saying I was going to be late, and you never knew it. He just jumped right in and kept going. So
well,
I really appreciate it.
Hey, it's no problem. It's no problem. It really was a swap. I had something planned to talk about during this segment, and I had you planned at 4, and I just swapped.
That's what I mean. You're a real professional.
Oh, okay.
You know
all
how
right,
to go about that.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. Okay, so you can take as long as you like or as short as you like, but what is your, just in general, your impression of the session 2017?
Sure. Well, I was certainly disappointed. You know, we went into the session with a large majority of Republicans, and we did not come out of the session, as exercising that authority or that power that we had, exercising the opportunity that we had in a number of areas. You know, I guess the ones I'm most aware of is on the tax side of this and on the school choice bill that didn't go through, that are all platform issues. Spending, we didn't decrease spending. Those issues we certainly fall short of what I would have thought we would have been able to achieve with the majority that we had.
Wow. School choice, that one's tough. Then they took kind of 2 stabs at that one too, and a lot of people. Was it just the pushback that you were getting from back home? You think that's what worried folks?
Absolutely, and I've heard you listen to your radio show on your app. By the way, I get on Facebook and hit the Facebook thing, and off we go, so I can access it easily. But I've heard other folks talk about that, and I think we have representatives who do try to represent their constituency, and they were elected as Republicans primarily because the Democrats have gone so far on some of the social issues that people who were Democrats can't go there, so they've changed their label to a Republican, but they still remain pretty much where they are on fiscal issues. So when we have issues like education, I think you got a huge pushback from mostly the teachers and educators who were afraid of their funding being cut, which was just not true. Mm-hmm. And there were a lot of inaccuracies and false statements put out there. People would vote against it, who, when you would reply to them, really didn't know the detail. A big part of it revolved around this $3 million tax credit. Well, we passed an $11 million tax credit for the steel folks over there in Blytheville, and nobody blinked an eye, and it was such a great thing. And I didn't vote for that, but I understand the rationale behind it. It was opportunity. It was, community development. But so was this. This was development for children who want access to education. And, I heard a lot about, it's state money. It's tax dollars. But before it was tax dollars, it was actually people's dollars.
Yeah, it's exactly right. And I think about the school choice, it's going to actually benefit way more families than just one steel company. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I know they may argue, well, it's going to benefit because of jobs, but you look at over time,
and those are good arguments to have. And but the point you make is very valid. If we're going to invest in our state, who better to invest in than education in our kids? You hear that from educators all the time. And when you say, well, let's give people a choice, I think it's over 60% of our kids come out of school and aren't proficient in reading. And about 40%, when they graduate from our schools, when they go on to college, have to be remediated. Now, in what business would how frequently would you go back to a business when you bought their product, the first thing you have to do is take it home and repair it? That's what happens when kids graduate from high school. They go to college, and the first thing the college has to do is remediate them. And through school choice, parents are saying, I just choose not to buy that product. And then the educators come back and say, well, it's public money. Well, before it was public money, it was private money. And the government has taxed us so much that people don't have the opportunity to use their private money to exercise freedom. So, if we could reduce that burden on the taxpayer, they could exercise choice more.
Last on the education, has the public school system kind of lost? Have we lost maybe the focus of the original intent of the government's responsibility to educate our children?
Yeah, I think, in my estimation, yes. When the Constitution of Arkansas and the U.S. Constitution were written, our education looked like your basic core subjects: reading, math, science. And it's evolved over time, which has been a good thing, because we have technology, we have new sciences come up, we have new things come up, but we have lost or walked away from our spending on the core subjects. And of course, you're going to hear people saying, well, we educate the total child and we educate the full child, and understandably that's true. But the facilities, the cost of our facilities, I heard on another radio station talking about sports this morning, and talking about building stadiums and building school athletic fields with turf on synthetic turf, and building new stadiums, building new art complexes. And while all those are good, it has diluted the funding that has gone to the core subjects. So that's, again,
that's a good point.
What Republicans, that's part of our platform, was to allow choice, whether it's between school to school, between school and charter schools, or between schools and other individual choices people make.
A lot of people were upset about that. Let's talk about revenue generation, or tax increases, or fee increases, or was that part of your disappointment in trying to go? And feel free to speculate with me as to why leadership was asking you guys to get more revenue. Why do they need so much more revenue?
Well, I was listening to your earlier segment, and they were talking about some of these, the government having a lobbyist in there. Well, certainly state agencies have a package of bills. Teacher retirement came to us. They had worked with constituents and legislators and the administration on a package of bills. Certainly DHS comes to us with a package of bills that they work with, some from the task force. Certainly other agencies, all highways, comes to us with a package of bills. So that's how those originate, and I think that's a valid thing. Matter of fact, it's one of the, don't let me stray too far, but it's one of the advantages of having legislators there for more than 3 years, because the bureaucrats kind of come to you with that package, and if you're not educated, you just take their package and walk down the road.
Which bureaucrat do you trust? That's the question.
And so as we're there longer, we learn more about that and become more engaged in the detail of what those packages are, and that's a good thing. Again, it's just being focused is our goal, and I know my core values are: does a bill expand government? Does it reduce spending or increase spending? Does it increase individual freedom and opportunity? And if it doesn't do those things, that's the first test. If it doesn't do those, then my default position is to oppose it and ask questions to why are we growing government? Why are we increasing spending? What other opportunities are there? The best example that I can give, we tried to pass some bills on advanced practice nurses. We had a couple out there, expand their scope of practice.
Oh, yeah, I remember those.
The study they had said, and I was a part of that study, said that it could save the state anywhere from $10 to $15 million at the beginning. So in my thinking, why would I vote for a tax increase while we're leaving that money on the table? Let's first find out where our savings are. Let's first find out how we cut spending and attribute that money to those other projects, whether it's roads or, just going DHS.
See that wasn't part of the predetermined outcome that some had. It's like, that would require, some real thought and debate. I know you had done it, but it's like that's not what they were interested in doing.
Well, again, it comes to the constituencies calling their legislators, lobbyists lobbying for it. And of course, the medical society and the hospitals are the largest lobby out there. Paul, you sat in on those at healthcare task force issues. Do you know that every group that was a target of that took a significant cut, except for doctors and hospitals?
Well, there you go.
They're the ones that did not get a big significant hit to them. Matter of fact, the hospitals are being subsidized through Arkansas Works. There's a large portion of their money. Now we are going forward with some other health care reform with a provider-led managed care model, and the hospitals are going to be potentially some of the biggest investors in that. And where does that money come from? That money comes from some of the residual they get from providing services based on Arkansas Works and based on federal subsidies. And now they're going to be putting that at risk in another program. And those are the kind of things that I am learning more detail about, that I oppose, based upon those very same principles I identified earlier.
Talk to me about the Second Amendment issue. We had the campus carry bill, and it voted and everything, and then we had another bill saying, we've got to undo what we did, and the SEC came out, and I talked about this kind of at length yesterday, just the SEC just saying, hey, we're concerned, and then you look at the NCAA and their boycott of North Carolina, and it just seemed like, I know it passed and a majority of Republican support, but it just seemed, and I know you guys were in a difficult situation, but what are your thoughts?
I appreciate that lead-in, but it wasn't a real difficult situation for me. I'm fully supportive of open carry and full constitutional rights to carry. However, we do represent a district, and of course ASU, Arkansas State, is a part of my district, and they expressed concern, and I heard some of the athletes talking about what their concerns are. And I played basketball at Arkansas State years ago, and coached in Caraway.
How many years ago?
We're not going there, Paul. 1970 through 72.
What was your average points per game? Do you know?
Mine, I think it was about 8 or 9 or 10.
Hey, that's good. Yeah. That's good production. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, well, you're doing a sports show now.
No, I'm sorry.
But as far as I remember, and being at Caraway and coaching at Caraway, our kids had guns, their shotguns in their car, in the back window, in the gun rack. We never had a problem. But I can understand that today it's a little bit different. And as one who represents a district, we moved the ball forward. We moved it down the field. We got some more things to it. We had to walk back. In the football analogy, we got penalized 10 yards or 5 yards. We moved it back. But we still had significant progress on open care, on rights to bear arms and the Second Amendment. So did we get as far as I would like to see us? Absolutely not. But did we make progress? Yes.
Yeah.
So,
well, there's no question, and I'm not a fan of the enhanced carry, or I'm not a fan of the approach. But yeah, there's no question that people are going to be able to carry a firearm if they go through the red tape in more places than they were when you started. So that's not a question. What the question to me is the process, because I know we hear from the universities and they didn't want this, but the bill had passed and it was what it was, and the NRA supported it. The NRA supported it specifically because I talked to them because of the stadium, because of the freedom that if you go through the additional training, you will be able to carry in these public places, which are pretty vulnerable if we think about it. And then at the signing, the governor's there and he takes some credit for, the NRA's there, and then immediately the NRA has to come out and impose the next bill to undo what was done. And I think that's what left such a bad taste in my mouth and a lot of folks.
Absolutely, and that's, again, it's a rough and tumble process, and it's not pretty, and there's a lot goes on behind the scenes, and there's a lot goes on, as you're aware of.
Yeah.
I heard you talking about the swamp a little while ago, and as I mentioned to you, the difference between Washington and Arkansas is we know who the alligators are. They're some of our friends. And, we're pretty comfortable in Arkansas in swamp territory. But, again, I think we represent the people, and we can't go as far as we would like to go as a legislator every time.
Yeah.
But we did make good progress. It was messy, but this is where we are, and we'll come back next session and try to improve on that.
We know the alligators by name. That's what you're saying. Yeah. So last thing, you stopped the fuel tax for now, stopped the internet sales tax for now. There seemed to be no willingness from the leadership. I still would have been against the internet sales tax, but no willingness to direct that money or to say, hey, we will cut your income taxes by $140 million. You know, there was like, no, we want a blank check. We want the new revenue, and we don't want to be told where to put it.
Absolutely not. That's why it didn't pass. You know, I think a couple of things. One is a sales use tax on internet sales. Would that benefit our local businesses? Yes, I think but the principle of I'm penalized, I want to penalize everybody equally, isn't a good Republican position. You know, let's free more people equally, not penalize more people, which a tax is. You know, had we taken that, my default position, if we want to do an internet sales tax and violate federal law, but we did that with marijuana anyway,
yeah,
so I don't have a problem with that.
That's a good point. Touche.
So you know, if we want to do that, then let's reduce the state sales tax, and that way the person paying sales tax isn't penalized.
Yes.
They come out of a level. But if you wanted to do something towards highways, but again, just to put it in additional funds, because you know my biggest concern is, you and I talked about it earlier, the big elephant is Arkansas Works and what the federal government's going to do to our health care. And the state's at risk for hundreds of millions of dollars, depending on what decisions the feds make. And so if we allocate internet taxes to a specific area, then others are not free to use that in other ways. So we may pull in an internet sales tax or tax soda or tax cigarettes or tax whatever we want to tax. But how can we be sure that money will go to those, you know, the sales tax or to internet tax, or I'm sorry,
something that benefits the most people that you know, other than, you know, able to work adults who just want their free health care to continue.
Yeah, you hear, if we're going to have a tax cut, we got to be able to pay for it.
Yeah.
Well, let's treat the taxpayer that way too. If we're going to raise their tax, let's lower it some way so they're not hurt.
I couldn't agree with you more on the concept of, you know, let's lower that sales tax. If we were going to do that, then let's lower the sales tax on existing business owners, because the brick and mortars were saying, you know, it's unfair if you bought into the narrative that, you know, this was about saving them, which I dispute that. But this really should have ignited them to say, hey, we are 9%. We're overtaxed here. Like, this is a 6.5% state. We need to reduce this burden.
And you know, the one thing I've learned in this session, in the last two sessions, you have to be able to see around the corner, because it's not what you see, it's what's around the corner that's going to catch you. And it's very easily, just like in the military tax cut we did, that really wasn't about the military, that was about passing something else. And this internet sales tax, I'm concerned that it's really not about taxing the internet and leveling the playing field with our business community. There's something else around the corner, highway funds, expansion of Medicaid, that money is really going to be attributed to. Mm-hmm. That's why there are a lot of legislators who rightfully wanted to know where that money's going.
It's weird. We have a parody that we did, Mother Government, the one about Obamacare and Medicaid expansion, and Arkansas Works being the same thing. And at the end, Mother Government says, we'll have another announcement at a later date to discuss the revenue, the revenue that we will need to collect to pay for our future goals. Yeah. And that's exactly what
Paul, I'm a part of a work group that's looking at revisions to Arkansas Works. And one of the things we found out the other day from our Director of Workforce Services, we have, I think I'm quoting him right, 40,000 people that reported no income and don't want to work. And we're paying their insurance. 40,000. We're going to move the threshold from 138 down to 100% of poverty, federal poverty level, which will help us reduce the number of people on Arkansas Works by 60,000 or so. we've got.
This is assuming the Fed's okay that, right?
This is assuming the Fed's okay it, right? And there's just a lot of detail to that, and there's a lot of ramifications because we don't know what the Feds are going to do with that. But the state's risk is tremendous. If we go back to a 70-30 match, and we get a block grant, that is based upon the 100% number versus the 138% number, folks, that's hundreds of millions of dollars that we're now responsible for. And it's really daunting. I used the analogy as we were talking before. You've seen the funniest home videos of the guy lifting the weights over his head on the bench press bar, and all of a sudden his arms wiggle and waggle. He's got too much weight, and he just collapses underneath it. Well, we're in a similar position. We've got a weight above our head, and if we don't take those weights off and do something quickly, our economy is going to be really struggle under the weight of several $100 million that we've already allocated, and now we're going to have to come up with the money.
You thought they wanted your taxes to be increased this time. You just wait. I mean, if Medicaid expansion were to say hit 400,000 plus, I mean, we're now talking about a huge crisis and a budget crisis, which I think we're in.
And that's why people want to know. If we're going to do an internet sales tax, where's the money going?
Yeah.
Let's just be upfront about that. And whether that was a reason behind it not passing, and there's something around the corner that we just don't know, and folks don't want to share at this time.
Yeah, that's a smart disposition to have, Representative Sullivan. What's around the corner? I appreciate it, sir. Dan Sullivan, your impression of the session.
Thanks, you, Paul, and I apologize for pushing you around, but you handled it great.
Hey, no, I appreciate you coming by. Folks, we're going to take a break. The Liberty Machine rolls on next.